Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Joe, I love starting shows with corrections and clarifications.
All mixed up, you don't know what to do. I guess we'll clarify and correct something or two. Because you know what, Joe and Joe is not the first or the last thing they've got wrong in the past.
What's that tape called?
It's just correction tape.
I never.
Oh, you never noticed the correction tape in there? Well,
really
I got a lesson in green screen usage because that's supposed to be like a white thing, but I couldn't get the green screen to quite work on Adobe Rush. Okay. So it just ends up kind of being black and you can see it on there. I made it work, but I hacked it together.
Was that for typewriters or was that for any kind of paper document?
It's for any type of paper document because I'm old enough to remember. So we had whiteout, the original whiteout, where you had the little container with the brush and you wait it to dry. If it didn't dry, you'd get like this weird, mush of ink and whiteout, right? And then there was the correction tape technology where you just kind of apply it down. It's kind of instantly dry on there.
Yeah.
So I kind of converted over to that.
Did you take typing in high school?
Oh yeah.
You have a typing class?
On an actual typewriter, yes.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
That eventually switched over to computers, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Electric typewriters, 93.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember taking because my mom can type like she should enter like a contest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So corrections and clarifications. So yesterday we were talking about North Carolina and NC State and the whole Wolf Down thing. And I said, I had not seen that before. I mean, the first time I could vividly remember seeing it was the ECU game.
ECU football.
In the Military Bowl. And obviously at the end of the NC State Carolina game, Jalen Washington and Elliott Cadeau were all up in NC State's business doing the Wolves down. And I had several listeners pointing out to me that, well, actually, no. I've seen that a couple of different places. Brandon pointing out to me that Duke did it after they beat State this year. Now, I will admit, I saw this picture from Duke football back on November 9th, win number 7. And I was like, cool, because I just saw the put your Dukes up thing, the Bull City thing, right? That's a separate conversation of how Duke football's kind of gentrified the whole Bull City move, but that's another conversation for another day. I did not pay that much attention to the picture itself, so I did not see that, yes, there were some Wolves down in that situation. Also got this from Keith, an OG, who's been around the block a few times when it comes to this rivalry. And he said, yeah, the Wolfpack down was around back in the 90s when I graduated from UNC. I said that was interesting. He also added, I grew up in Raleigh as a Tar Heel fan, went to UNC. I know hate of that school more than many do. However, I enjoy y'all's show, but fuck Wolfpack in every way possible. So there you go. Appreciate you, Keith.
Blood feud.
It is a blood feud. So, and there, people had given me some other examples. I think I got a text to the OG sports phone saying, hey, this is from an 828. Hey, OG, wanted to weigh in on the Wolves down. I'm a state guy, state grad. My first UNC football game was 2013. Marquise Williams scored a TD, threw the Wolves down. Just wanted to clarify so ECU doesn't get the credit. I remember Marquise doing the upside down U. I don't remember Marquise doing, and I guess I can contact Marquise. I'm like, hey, man, did you do the Wolves down back in the day? So there you go. So that's correction and clarification number 1. Correction and clarification number 2.
All mixed up, you don't know what to do. I guess we'll clarify and correct something or two. Because you know what, Joe and Joe is not the first or the last thing they've got wrong in the past.
This comes to us from a 919 to Giglio from a basketball official. Traveling isn't the call on a spot throw-in. The player gets 3 feet to move on both sides of the spot. If they go outside of that, it's just a throw-in violation, not a travel. That being said, it definitely looked like he went outside that 3-foot area.
I have never seen a player take as many steps on a spot throw-in before. I'll just put it that way. I'll put it that way.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So those are your corrections and clarifications. And speaking of rivalries, we saw one of the most heated rivalries on the NFL field yesterday, and that is between Sam Darnold and Ghosts. Because he saw Ghosts last night again. I hate it for Sam Darnold because he had a really great regular season, but that kind of turned into the Sam Darnold we've seen from the past. His internal clock was very, very off, and the Rams go on to win that game in pretty dominating fashion. Dominating fashion.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk this year about what a great coach Kevin O'Connell is, and I get it. Like they won 14 games with Sam Darnold as their quarterback.
Defense was great all year, yeah.
And they were a feel-good story. They were choreographing celebrations, all these other things. I thought they were going to win last night.
Yeah.
Sean McVay had one of those. Yeah, I think he kind of sort of forgot about me.
It happens. That happens.
The Rams,
we move on to the next new hot young thing, right?
The Rams have done a really good job rebuilding their defense kind of quietly. You know, you lose the Aaron Donald and you're like, okay, well, we'll never replace him. Well, they went out and got like 4 guys to replace one.
Yeah.
And their defensive front was really spectacular last night. All of it's for naught. I suspect we'll either get the Eagles or the Lions, probably the Eagles out of the NFC. And we're gonna get the Chiefs out of the AFC. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, meanwhile, we're back into the Dallas Cowboys finding ways to hijack the news cycle. Weird, huh?
I saw this.
So Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys are mutually parting ways. They had a conscious uncoupling. And of course, they do this in the most Jerry Jones way possible, in that they waited until this is something that Nick Wright has pointed out about the Cowboys, and he's absolutely right. The Cowboys always find new and exciting ways to add a option you never thought of when it comes to these matters. Dak Prescott. Well, there's really 3 things you could do with Dak Prescott. Oh no. The Cowboys found a way to add a 4th to the mix. By the way, they waited until the last minute, overpaid for him, put their salary cap number in a crunch, and then obviously you have the season that you have here. The same thing happens with Mike McCarthy. You really had 2 options with Mike McCarthy. Either you bring him back or you say you're out. And that way you start the clock on talking to people that, interviews with Ben Johnson and the like and all that kind of stuff, right? So instead they did the 3rd option that nobody really considered. Oh, wait a minute. You're going all the way down to the last minute, have some sort of contract negotiation the day before your contract expires. And then you agree, nah, I'm good. We're out. And of course, the minute that happens, what do we get? Shout out to JP. Hey, look, a thing that Giglio and Ovies said was going to happen might actually happen. From Jordan Schultz and various other NFL insiders. Sources: Cowboys owner Jerry Jones has spoken to Colorado head coach Deion Sanders about the team's head coaching vacancy, and discussions are expected to continue regarding the possibility of him becoming the next head coach in Dallas. Coach Prime is considered a top candidate, but the Cowboys plan to interview other candidates as part of the process, per team sources.
All right, so the Giants are not going to help the Dallas Cowboys. The only way that Deion Sanders becomes the Dallas Cowboys coach, as I said before the season started, will be to coach his sons. Okay. So the Giants are not going to help the Dallas Cowboys.
No,
straight up. That's not going to happen.
No.
You're Tennessee, you're Cleveland, you're at 1-2. Cleveland, their quarterback situation is wonky. We totally get that, right? Tennessee, I suspect, wants to take a quarterback. If they do, it's probably Cam Ward, right? So do you play chicken with the Giants?
Yes.
And go to New England and say, we'll give you Dak Prescott and our 12th pick for the number 4 pick. Who says no? I don't think New England says no.
Nah.
Well, maybe they would because of Drake May. Maybe they would because of Drake May. Or they could just trade the pick, not take Prescott.
Right, I was gonna say they don't have
take other packages.
They don't have to take Prescott.
Okay.
There's other things that you can do.
You go to New England, you make a trade. New England, Mike Vrabel, in an homage to his mentor, trades down.
Mike Tanier, who writes a NFL newsletter for Substack, refers to Mike Vrabel as, and this is brilliant, he refers to him as Malibu Ken Belichick. Malibu Belichick. He's just the new and exciting one with the new hat. It's just another version of it.
He trades down.
Yeah.
Deion. Now that was going to have to happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, this has to happen now.
Because I don't think he takes that job without knowing that Shador could be his quarterback.
Why?
I've told you what is.
But what's left for him in Colorado? And it's the Cowboys. It's the biggest thing. Because remember, you got to remember one thing. As I agree with you. I think
he wants to coach his son.
I don't disagree with you. But that's harder to pull off.
It is.
Okay.
I mean, it's a needle that would need to be threaded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not everybody's LeBron. So you have to thread that needle. However, Deion, at the end of the day, is about Deion and his brand and being the star. Well, what better way to combine your star with the star? Okay. and you had that relationship with Jerry Jones. Jerry would absolutely bend over backwards to make Deion the head coach because, once again, Jerry Jones is more interested in dominating the storylines than he is about winning football games. Even though he'll tell you he wants to win a Super Bowl, his Super Bowl is making sure that we're talking about the Cowboys 24/7. And for the most part, he's right. So I understand what you're saying about Shedeur Sanders, but those are things that are way more difficult to pull off in the NFL as a head coach team and where you pick and all that stuff. And also, there's a different, I mentioned LeBron. It's easier for LeBron to do because really, what was the market for Bronny James? Right?
Right.
There's a market for Shedeur Sanders.
Actually, looking at it, you could play chicken with Jacksonville too because they have a quarterback. They're not getting rid of their quarterback.
They just signed him to a new contract.
New England's not going to pick a quarterback. You can can just sit here and you know what? You count on the Giants' long line of history of institutional racism and that they're not going to take a black quarterback with the third pick.
No. Meanwhile, we're talking about all these situations. Mike McCarthy is going to interview with the Chicago Bears, which they could have done last week. Remember the Jerry Jones and the Cowboys were like, no, you can't talk to Mike McCarthy when it was abundantly clear you weren't going to keep him. So now he's going to talk to the Bears. But you know who else has interest from the Bears? Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame head coach. Mm-hmm. So I think the Bears, have they interviewed you? Because I feel like they've interviewed just about everybody in this coaching search.
I know I've listed the other coaches who've gotten second chances.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Bill Belichick and Mike McCarthy at 61 has more value to the NFL than you,
yes.
I would never leave my house.
Which gets us to the Bill Belichick portion of the program. Before we discuss Bill Belichick, this is technically an ACC matter. And when we talk about ACC things, we shout out our friends at Keller Williams Commercial. The Donnelly team can help you out. This is a very specific thing that they do with commercial real estate. So if you are looking for a warehouse space, you are looking for move an office, you've got any number of things that you need a large commercial space for, or a specific kind of space downtown or thing like that, they can help you out at Keller Williams.
Yeah, they large, small, any kind of business, any kind of commercial needs. Give them a call, 919-616-8681. Or you can go to triangleNCCommercial.com.
So let's go to Bill Belichick. He was on the final Manning cast last night between the Vikings
I'm glad.
and the Rams.
He just doesn't get any kind of exposure.
No, he doesn't. It's amazing he can do all these things while also being the head coach of the Tar Heels. So let me refresh this if you're watching on YouTube, because Threads is a little wonky with their media player. So hold tight, please.
In the second half without you, Bill, I just can't say enough. Just thank you so much for joining us this year. We had a blast. It was more fun being your teammate than having to go against you. I know that much for sure.
I don't know. Hey, you can kind of speak for yourself there. I kind of like playing against Bill sometimes.
Okay. All right,
Sorry. Truce is off now, Coach. Truce is off.
Bill, we wish you nothing but the best in North Carolina, and thanks for being our Manningcast teammate for this past season. Eli's got one more thing for you, I think.
Yeah, I went back into the archives, Coach, and I found something that you and Peyton actually have in common, and we'll play it when we can here in a second.
Tar Heel!
There we go. That was for you, Coach.
So he's calling an audible at the line instead of saying, Omaha, it's Tar Heel. See what they did there?
Because of Jeff Saturday.
Yes, there you go. So that's where we are with Bill Belichick. Or are we?
Bill Belichick laughing at Eli Manning bringing up the two worst points in his life actually makes me think that he is soulless at this point.
He must be. He must be. Now, Bill Belichick still we're at a weird inflection point with Bill Belichick in North Carolina, because with all these NFL jobs opening up, either Bill Belichick's team wants you to believe that there is interest in the NFL or whatever reason from the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That he's still in the mix, or it's still out there. He's still basically letting the NFL know, I'm still listening, even though I'm now the head coach at North Carolina. Or it's a real threat. So it's either like Lombardi and the crew trying to make Belichick feel good, and there's really nothing there, or there's something there. Bottom line, though, is I am hats off and salute to North Carolina, man, because they swapped out one 73-year-old head football coach who was constantly hounded by retirement rumors on the recruiting trail. They swapped him out for another 73-year-old head football coach. Mind you, he's got 6 Super Bowl rings, but instead of being hounded by retirement rumors on the recruiting trail, he's going to be constantly hounded by NFL head coach rumors, which gets us to Pro Football Talk and Mike Florio. And the headline on Pro Football Talk was Belichick's North Carolina staff is slowly taking shape. I had texted somebody who would know these things better than I, hey, in this portrayal, is there something to the fact that the staff doesn't look fully fleshed out on January 14th? He goes, nah, not really. It's fine. You can question who they've hired, but in terms of the pace of where things are and how and when Belichick actually took the job, it's about where it should be. I'm like, okay, interesting. I thought that was an interesting kind of level-headed take on it. But this is the paragraph that I found the most interesting. The situation is doing nothing to fray nerves in Chapel Hill regarding the possibility that Belichick will activate his $10 million buyout and bolt for the NFL. Separate and apart from the question of whether another team will hire him, the Raiders are not interested, even if Belichick would like people to think they are. UNC is bracing for the possibility that Belichick will be gone not long after he arrived. There was also this little blurb that I thought was interesting as it relates to the concerns. Maybe it's part of a broader plan. This is in terms of the coaching hires. Maybe it's part of the broader plan. Regardless, it's making people nervous from the athletic director all the way up to the top. We are told the ACC commissioner. Why Jim Phillips would be fretting about Bill Belichick at North Carolina, I'm not quite sure how that ties into it. But the whole fretting behind the scenes ties into something that I was texting with another person who would know. Says, yeah, man, vibes are a little off right now with Bill Belichick and North Carolina, and not because of the NFL. What I found interesting is related to the portal. And this is something that I think we're now getting the cold, hard reality of where Bill Belichick and North Carolina are in terms of trying to build a football program versus the big boys who have been doing this for a while now. And that any sort of portal identification that happens from North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, whoever, whichever big boy you want, they'll go hard, and they actually have the apparatus behind them to make this kind of work while North Carolina is still building up their apparatus. Or Bill Belichick and Lombardi finding out, hey, college is like a different language, and we're having a little bit of a harder time understanding this language than we initially thought. And the idea is that the real fretting behind the scenes already is that the portal haul or the talent they're going to have on the field this upcoming season is not where they thought it was going to be, which I find kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think there was this notion that, and you saw it on his initial appearance with McAfee.
Yeah.
Oh man, if I had a kid, that's the first thing I would do is send you to play for the NFL factory of Bill Belichick. Just tell me you weren't paying attention to the Patriots at the end of Bill Belichick's tenure. He barely had an NFL roster as it was. He spent the post-Brady era complaining about how he went for it. He was all in. He went for it with Tom Brady, and then he had to pay for the salary cap sins of what they tried to do in the final years of Brady. So yeah, I mean, it's symbolic that the first player they got was an offensive lineman from Holy Cross. This is exactly the type of player I thought they would be going after. And, the idea that, a 5-star quarterback recruit or Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning or whatever ridiculous scenario you wanted to throw out there was going to be wowed by Bill Belichick because he has 6 Super Bowl rings. I mean, that's not really tracking with what Bill Belichick's personality is. A, how he wants to build a team. Also, B, talk to anybody who played for Bill Belichick. Most of them will tell you. Even the players themselves were saying, Gronk and Brady?
Yeah,
on Fox, were like,
nah, man.
No, I could just imagine his recruiting pitch. Well, or Edelman. I mean, I guess you could come here. I mean, maybe we'll play him.
It's funny to your point. To your point about how everybody was lining up to say, I'd absolutely want my kid to play for Bill Belichick.
No, I mean, McAfee was.
No. But like Jeff Saturday was doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's a Carolina guy.
Yeah.
But what did I see Jeff Saturday doing this morning on ESPN talking about Deion Sanders and Colorado and Dallas? And he was saying, man, I want my kids to be coached by Deion Sanders. I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Pick one.
I thought Tar Heel for life and all this stuff. But I got what he was saying about Deion Sanders, though, and that Deion understanding where college athletics is today is about more than just football and more than just securing the NIL. Like he's trying to, I buy all this stuff. And Saturday was making a very eloquent point about Deion and college and how it would be a shame if he left Colorado for for the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm also thinking to myself, wait a minute. Just a few weeks ago, we're talking about how, oh man, how could you not send your kid to Bill Belichick? But now it's like, no, Deion Sanders. So that stuff is kind of fluid and going. I bring all this up to say, back to my original point, in that whether Tar Heel fans like it or not, this is going to be a constant talking point. And we're already starting to see now whether this is, it doesn't matter once we get to August 30th and we start playing football, and we'll see how this goes, right? Because there's still also the Bill Belichick coach aspect of this. Regardless of what happens in building a team, there's still the coaching aspect of it. To your point, I really doubt that North Carolina is going to beat itself once we get to football season, right?
Yeah, no doubt about that.
But the question is, in a sport where the Jimmies and the Joes can sometimes outperform the X's and the O's, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of Jimmies and Joes North Carolina has. And right now, you're starting to already hear about how it's not going the way they initially thought it was going to go. So just something interesting to keep an eye on as we get through the summer and to the second signing day in college football.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to our friends at Enovana. You can check them out online at enovana.com. Green Cleaning Solutions.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Enovana.
Joe is always trying to find ways to incorporate golf into our silly gatherings, and we've got one at Sully's Golf and Gather. This is going to take place on February 5th, that Wednesday evening, and it's out in Garner, and there's going to be a closest to pin and longest drive competition on these simulators. $15 entry, cash prizes for the people, Joe.
I can't wait. This is a run up to the WM Phoenix Open, where they have the unbelievable par 3, the stadium course, hole in one, all the history. That's what we're doing. So we'll be there. Send me an email, giglio.joe@gmail.com, and to reserve your spot, giglio.joe@gmail.com. We'll be there. It's a Wednesday. We'll be out there from 6:30 to 8:30. Timber Drive in Garner. You can even hit up Nature's Relief that night on your way in or out.
So my question is, are you participating? Do I participate?
God, yes.
Okay.
You got to bring the 14 wood.
I will bring the 13 wood.
Because we can do both. We can do an actual long drive. Then we can do a long drive with the 13 wood. We can do a long drive with the putter.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do who can get a hole in one with the 13 wood. We're only limited by our imagination.
I'm excited about it. Big thanks to our friends at Breeze Through. Check them out at breezethrough.com. You can download the app to save gas. More importantly, if you're spending a lot of time around Lenovo Center like Giglio has been, you're going to need coffee to stay awake, or you need a 6-pack to go tailgate. Any number of things. Maybe
January.
both.
Yeah.
Try January. So overrated.
I feel good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
sun drop is what I had yesterday, by the way. I don't know why I called it squirt.
It's the same thing.
It is, right?
How did you feel about that, by the way?
The squirt?
Yeah.
Or sun drop?
The sun drop, diet sun drop.
I actually thought it was pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had one before. I've had like normal sun drop.
I'm trying to remember if I've had it or not.
Do they still make Mellow Yellow, or did they change the name of it?
No, they still make Mellow Yellow.
Okay.
They changed the branding of Mellow Yellow, but
okay,
they still make it though. But yeah, I was gonna say when Governor Roy Cooper was talking about all of his diet sun drop intake, he talks about like the caffeine, and I'm just like, caffeine must affect you in a way that that does not affect me.
I'm completely and totally addicted to caffeine. There's zero doubt about that.
Well, I've talked about this. For me, I don't know if caffeine affects me in that particular way.
Yeah, you're kind of weird. Like nothing bothers you.
Coffee is routine to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But it doesn't like zing you the way it zings me.
I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I drank Cuban coffee as a kid that I've built up some sort of caffeine immunity. I really don't know.
They're going to study you like you're like an NFL player. They're going to study your
well,
stomach
when they cut me open, I believe that Tar Heel Blue Soda from 1982 will come pouring out.
Oh,
yeah.
My guy Zach sent me.
Oh boy, what'd you guys find?
A 93 Florida State National Championship soda.
We'll pop it when Florida State leaves the ACC. I
believe he wants us to pay for it though.
Depending on how much it
hostage situation.
I don't know. What does the grant of rights say?
You ready?
What's the exit fee for that?
He has a whole collection here, including we didn't have this. We had the blue, so that's Florida State.
Yeah.
And then there's an 82.
That's a good
Carolina.
You know what?
And then what is this? 91 Duke? Because we only had Duke in a can.
I actually have the 91 Duke, but in blue.
Blue. Okay.
Yeah, I actually have that back there. I'm not cracking that open because I don't even know what that blue is going to do. Plus, it looks good on the studio.
That Florida State is
Can we-
a whole.
No. Let's buy the Florida State.
Look, it's a whole 6-pack.
Dude, can we buy that and bring it to Jim Phillips at ACC kickoff?
We
We can crack them open. Like, let's toast to our friends at Florida State.
We can. Yeah,
Okay,
that's a good idea.
perfect. Speaking of things that you put in your body, Nature's Relief hempstore.com. This is not blue soda. This is stuff that actually can help you. It's helped me. All right. Blue soda does not help you, but Nature's Relief can help you with things like anxiety, better night's sleep, or just chilling out. So go to Nature's Relief hempstore.com, RELEAF hempstore.com. Also, big thanks to our friends at Roback. If you are melting in the couch after taking something from Nature's Relief, you want to make sure that you're comfortable while you melt in the couch. You want to have a hoodie like Joe's wearing today. You go to roback.com, use that promo code OG20. Again, that's OG20 to save 20% off your order.
Yeah, I got a text from Ben after yesterday's read went off the rails,
Yeah.
and he said, we can always count on you guys to be the consummate professionals during ad reads.
Hey, we make them memorable.
He said, despite not being outlined in the contract, we always welcome the use of man touchdowns in rollback ads. He did say, we hate scripted ads. So
Perfect.
you know what?
Perfect. Big thanks to
We're here for you.
Big thanks to our friends at Hometown Realty. You could buy, you could sell with confidence. I was in Garner last night. You see the sign. You
Beacon
feel
of
at
hope.
home, Beacon of hope. And buddy, let me tell you, this hockey season needs it. MyHTR.com is the website. New construction is going up everywhere, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best possible options, builder incentives, things like that. Hometown Realty can help you there. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline from her couch, her home base, Brooke Pryor, ESPN, covers the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL and beyond. Brooke, what's up?
Not much. I feel like I'm like the grandparents in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like I've got my blanket. I'm cozy. I may never leave this couch until I have to work in a couple hours. So I will, in fact, be leaving it. But I wish I was Grandpa Joe. I wish I was Grandpa Joe and I could stay here all day.
No. You have to go see the Mike Tomlin press conference where everybody's kind of intrigued as to what's going to be happening. I made this argument last week, and it's playing out exactly as I thought. Aftermath of Steelers Ravens, the storylines were already in a prepared meal. All you had to do was put it in the microwave, add 30 seconds a bunch of times, and then voila, you have yourself a wonderful take meal, whether it's Lamar Jackson based or in this case, Mike Tomlin based. And the read that I have in watching ESPN or just kind of seeing the conversation on social media, I feel like this is more of like a sports like debate show topic than what's really going on behind the scenes as far as Mike Tomlin is concerned. Is that an accurate characterization that this is great on First Take and great on Get Up, but there on the ground, I mean, it kind of is what it is?
Yes, but I will say this is maybe the loudest that I have heard national media get and the debate shows get, and even locally, it's like the levels and just the intricacies of how people feel about Mike Tomlin are wild and are very stratified, if that's the right word. Tiered, maybe?
Sure. Yeah.
Within the building, within like the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, Mike Tomlin, his seat is cool, I would say. His 3-year extension hasn't even kicked in yet. That kicks in this season. Art Rooney does not pay people not to work unless you're Matt Canada. Congratulations, you bucked the trend. But he certainly doesn't pay head coaches not to work. And Mike Tomlin has built up enough cachet that he's not going to just fire him with that much time left. Outside of the building, in terms of Steelers fans, that Mike Tomlin's seat is so hot he can't come within 50 feet of it. They wanted him gone yesterday. And the Ravens game only solidified all of those reasons. And it's fair. It was his, 6th consecutive playoff loss. He hasn't won since he beat the Chiefs in 2016 on an all field goal performance. Like, they're over it. They're tired of hearing the standard. It's the standard when the standard is just one and done in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And then nationally, his seat has been ice cold, but now it feels like it's at least warm. Like it's simmering. It's rice that you've brought up to a boil, and then you've turned it down, and it's cooking a little bit. Like there's definitely heat is being conducted. And to me, that signals a shift in how Mike Tomlin is perceived, and maybe could turn up the seat a little bit inside the building, because I do think that the Rooney family cares a little bit about perception, for as much as they say they don't, at least like in terms of the national narrative. And it's all fair. He has, Bill Belichick has won a Super Bowl more recently than Mike Tomlin's won a playoff game. There's another, I was finding one tweet of the Steelers stages of grief that are very also microwavable. But another tweet that someone sent me is, since Mike Tomlin's last playoff win, Doug Peterson was hired. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Doug Peterson was fired. Doug Peterson was hired. Doug Peterson won a playoff game. Doug Peterson was fired. Like, that is wild. Doug Peterson has lived 3 lives since Mike Tomlin last won a playoff game. So the status quo feels like it's not going to change in terms of Mike Tomlin being the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming year, and probably the year after that, and maybe the year after that.
Yeah.
But I do think that there has been a noticeable narrative shift nationally, and that's going to be interesting to see how he and the Steelers deal with that.
Brooke, it's been a very educational basketball season for me. I've been learning to think like a Tar Heel. So I want to learn to think like a Yinzer. They understand, and maybe I'm just seeing this the wrong way, but surely they understand that as long as a Rooney, whether it's Art or another Rooney, owns that franchise, they're not going to be like every other franchise and fire Doug Peterson after he wins a fucking Super Bowl, by the way.
Yeah.
Philly. That's not who they are. Their consistency. I'm just looking, and I'm very proud of myself when I get one over on Joe Ovies. I did yesterday. He's sitting here talking about Mike McCarthy and all these other comparisons. Just as people are afraid to compare black quarterbacks to white quarterbacks, I had to set them straight. The comparison for Mike Tomlin is Bill Cowher. They're both hired at 35 years old by the Steelers. They both went to the Super Bowl early in their career, didn't win it, stagnated, then won it. Then ultimately, after, what's Cowher, 15 years? He, at 49 years old, Bill Cowher left the NFL. That's wild. Mm-hmm. Mike Tomlin, I'm learning this morning, is 52 years old. Mike Tomlin's been a coach for 18, and he's 2 years older than me. He's been a coach in the NFL for 18 years. This is what the Steelers are. So I'm asking you, do people in Pittsburgh not understand what the Steelers are?
They do, and that's why they're so frustrated. Like, just because that's how you've done something in the past doesn't mean that's how you should do it in the future. Yeah. And I think that's what the Steelers fan base is saying. I think that is why they're so frustrated, is when they look at, like,
you should invite them to live in Charlotte for 2 years. I'm being serious.
Go watch the Panthers for a hot minute. Well, this branches out into two conversations. So Joe's sitting here talking about getting over on me. I'm like, I didn't realize it was a contest yesterday. Oh yeah. Okay. News to me.
It's always a contest.
I guess. I forgot what Joe, it really is always a contest. I'm just here for the vibes and combos. So I actually think I disagree with Joe now that you're going to bring it up. So I'm going to use Brooke to get over on you.
Yes.
In this game of risk. Okay.
Is that the one where you don't play if you win?
Yeah.
Best way to
yeah. Just take the continent, like the big one, take Asia, and then you're good to go. So anyway, isn't the real comp for Mike Tomlin a guy? This is Brooke's wheelhouse. Isn't Mike Tomlin's comp Andy Reid at this point?
Yeah, you literally took the words out of my mouth. That was. I feel like we're mind melded this morning, because I was just about to bring that up.
It's Andy Reid in that things ran their course in Philly. Yes. Nothing's knocking the coach. Okay. No knock on the coach. Great coach. He goes somewhere else, which gets to point number 2. The issue with the Steelers is that their floor is so high, it kind of fucks you when it comes to the draft. So you got to go ready to go up, build up.
I have been shouting this since I got to Pittsburgh and started to understand what the Mike Tomlin paradox is. I think Mike Sando at The Athletic called it the Mike Tomlin paradox earlier this week. And I love that phrase. I love the word paradox. And it's true. Like the Mike Tomlin problem is that, great, you're never going to have a losing season. You're also never going to have an opportunity because of the way you run your organization to draft a game-changing player.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of this is also so many of the Steelers' problems are rooted in their recent history in terms of they held on to Ben Roethlisberger too long. They also probably held on to Kevin Colbert as the GM too long and let him go out on his own terms. His last couple drafts were bad, at least in terms of the early picks. Like, I believe Devin Bush was their last top 10 pick. They traded up to get him. What did he do? Like, I know that he had an ACL in the middle of that. Like, in the midst of his best season, he tore his ACL. And so we don't know how good he could have been. But, like, in terms of on-field production, in terms of what he added to the locker room, like, it was a bad pick. And hindsight's 2020, but I think that there's just things like that. To me, I've lost my point now because I just get so worked up about thinking about all of the things in the past that are now affecting them in the future. But because of the way the Steelers run their organization, right? They are a risk-averse team, and that's the problem. You're never going to win in the playoffs or make a real credible Super Bowl run when your team method is, let's limit the damage. Let's limit the possibilities that things go sideways. We're not gonna leverage the future to trade up and draft in the top 5. We're not gonna bottom out so that we can get a top 5. We're not gonna, get rid of our coach who's at least giving us non-losing seasons because we don't know what the future is. It's a very scared way of doing business, which when you look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers stand for, playing scared kind of goes against their whole philosophy in the 70s. And that's where they've lost it. And I think that this has just become a team that is so worried about protecting its reputation that it's not willing to go out on a limb to reclaim what its original identity was.
Andy Reid in Philly had 3 losing seasons, didn't win a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But I see what you're saying in terms of he was there for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
There was a plateau. That's on the plus side for Mike Tomlin. He hasn't had those losing seasons. On the plus side for Mike Tomlin, he had a Super Bowl championship. But my point in comparing Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin is not only the job. Andy Reid's the best X&O coach since Bill Walsh.
Sure. It helps that you have Patrick Mahomes, though.
No, even at Philly, he was a great X&O coach.
Yeah.
Right? So Mike Tomlin, I think even he would tell you, while he probably bristles at the idea of being the king of cool and the king of vibes, he's a people person.
He's a culture guy.
He's a culture guy. He's a standard is the standard guy. I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to sit here and say to you, yeah, man, we're winning because I'm over here brainiacking this thing up.
Which means he probably needs to go somewhere else. Because I guess the other thing.
But that's to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took Andy having a 4-12 season in his last year in Philly, where they were 4-12.
Right.
So, to the point of not bonding me. I'll say this though about Pittsburgh. Brooke, you bring up the 70s. That was a different era. In terms of this, they drafted like 9 Hall of Famers in 2 different draft classes, and they were able to keep them. Like you can't do, obviously, even if you were good enough to draft 9 Hall of Famers in 2 draft classes, you can't keep them. Their defense fell apart this year, and I don't know why. I mean, you probably have a better answer as to why their defense fell apart the way that it did this year. But ultimately, the one thing I will say about Pittsburgh though is Kansas City didn't get Patrick Mahomes with the number 1 pick in the draft. They traded up.
Yeah.
And I know the Rooneys and Maras, there's some blood merit. There's some marriages in there. And one of them gets naked all the time in movies. I can't keep up with all of that. But the Giants refuse to trade draft picks. They refuse. It's like one of their tenets. Are the Steelers the same way? They will not trade up or trade down in the.
So that had been their thing for a long time. Omar Khan has been a little bit riskier. I mean, they traded up to get Devin Bush.
Okay.
They traded away their first round pick to get Minka Fitzpatrick.
Okay.
But by and large, they don't trade draft picks. But that's part of the problem. If you're not going to trade draft picks, but you're not going to be bad enough to have a top 10 pick on your own, something's got to give. And that, I think that, there's so many different directions that you can take this Mike Tomlin discussion. A couple things that jump to mind for me with Tomlin, like the comp that I keep going back to with Tomlin and the Steelers, and why it's okay to say he's a good coach, but he needs to move on. And the Steelers shouldn't just keep him because, like, the argument that I always hear is, well, if you fired Mike Tomlin, half the league would fire their coach and hire him.
Yeah. Great.
Well, when you're married, you don't say, okay, it's not working out between us, but I'm going to stay married because if my partner were single, she'd have 15 dates tomorrow. Like, great. That good for her. That maybe there's a better match out there. Just because you guys aren't compatible doesn't mean you should keep her so that she can't be compatible with somebody else. Like, you have to evaluate how the relationship works for you before you look at how it could, like, how other people value your partner, how other people value your head coach. The other thing that I will say in terms of Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid, X's and O's versus culture guys, I do think that Mike Tomlin's one of the root of his problems, and it's hard to say if this is a Tomlin thing or if this is a Rooney thing. The Steelers have one of the smallest staffs in the NFL. When you also look at the track record of who they have hired as coordinators, particularly under Tomlin, Mike Tomlin doesn't have a coaching tree. And that's assistants, coordinators. There are not guys that were assistants under Mike Tomlin that have gone on to be coordinators other places. There are very few coordinators who have left Pittsburgh and gone on to something else. And it's hard to say if the quality of coordinator and assistant that's being hired is because that's what Mike Tomlin wants, or because that's what they can attract because their pay is so much lower as compared to other teams in the league. Brian Flores is kind of an outlier in this, but he was also only in Pittsburgh for 1 year. And that was because he had nowhere else to go, and Mike Tomlin did him a solid and brought him in. And that was great. I thought that was a great move. I think that they should do more things like that. But I think that I would like to see him in another organization that has a bigger checkbook, that's willing to spend more, to then know, is Mike Tomlin, could he go somewhere and be okay with being a CEO vibes head coach if he's hiring the next Ben Johnson at OC, if he's hiring the next Brian Flores at DC? Because while he gives off the perception of he's down to be a vibes guy, his hires suggest that he still thinks he knows best with defense, with offense. There have been debates as long as I've been here defensively. Who's really calling the defensive plays? Was it Keith Butler? Is it Terrell Austin? I would argue that Mike Tomlin has had a very large hand in that. And so it's hard to even evaluate how good his coordinators are. Offensively, I think that Arthur Smith is tough to evaluate because he's a maverick of sorts, similar to Matt Canada. Sometimes it feels like they're overthinking it and simplify it because they're overthinking it. But, like, is Mike Tomlin, how much of him was behind the Steelers being very conservative offensively down the stretch because they want to keep a high floor? How much of an influence is he really having in these places? And so I wish that we could just do like the claw and like the 50-cent games. We could just like claw Mike Tomlin out of Pittsburgh and drop him in somewhere else.
Toy Story
thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
You just described a coach who's very involved on the defensive end and molds their identity conservatively and has hired Matt Canada to call plays. Now, who could that ever?
Yeah, but you know what?
Who does that sound like?
One guy has cool vibes, the other doesn't. Just saying.
You
will get no argument.
Only in the same conversation can you be compared to Andy Reid and Dave Dorn.
Only on this podcast, Joe.
What a niche crossover.
You cannot get that anywhere else, folks. You cannot. All right, we're going to leave on this, Brooke. All that being said, you mentioned the contract and everything else. And to get out of this Tomlin paradox, this purgatory, if you will, would the Steelers be okay with them going 4-12 or whatever, 4-13, and moving up in the draft? Like, because it's entirely possible, given how what's going into this offseason with the quarterback and everything else, they might not have a winning record next year. So what are they okay with that? Do you give, because that's the argument Joe and I had about the second act, right? Cowher had his second act. When does Tomlin's actual second act begin? I don't know. Is it? I really don't know what it is.
I think it did when Roethlisberger was gone. I think that's when it started.
That's when it started. Yeah. So, but again, you haven't really had a good crack at it with the way the NFL is structured today, where everything is based around the quarterback being the main character. I mean, it's just that simple, and they don't have it. They don't have it. And you saw what happened last night with Darnold, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, great story in the regular season, but he saw those ghosts again, and that's only going to take you so far. Or in the case of another guy that you covered, Baker Mayfield, great story, but who did he get knocked out by? Well, he got knocked out by the young gun, the next young gun in Jaden Daniels. So that's kind of like where we're at right now. You can get a reclamation project, but even how far is that going to take you?
Exactly. The Steelers have a choice to make right now. They hate the word rebuild.
Yeah.
Hate it. Won't use it.
Yep.
If you're not going to go 4-12 and get a top 5 pick, then you've got to trade a valuable asset, your most valuable asset. If Mike Tomlin is a non-negotiable, you've got to trade TJ Watt.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to trade Minkah Fitzpatrick. Maybe you've got to trade George Pickens. You don't have to get rid of all 3, but you've 2 of the 3. You've got to part with something that can then bring you those top 5 picks. You can't do both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And that's been the Steelers' way. That's been the standard. It's the definition of insanity, which I think is actually not really the definition of insanity, but it's become such a catchphrase that that's all I think about is you're doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Now, insanity would be Mike Tomlin moves on in some sort of trade, and then they bring in Bill Belichick, who's still, poking around, hoping an NFL team calls him for real this offseason.
No, I think insanity would be firing Mike Tomlin or trading Mike Tomlin. Okay, this might. I'll leave you guys with this.
Okay.
My hot take is they trade Mike Tomlin to the Cowboys, hire Mike McCarthy, and in return from Tomlin to the Cowboys, maybe you get Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons. Not all 3, but pick one and a draft pick and your first round pick, second round pick. It would never happen. Mike Tomlin and Jerry Jones would be a content Christmas, but they would make each other's lives hell. And the least media friendly coach, for as much as we love his Tomlinisms, Tomlin is the least wants to participate in media, and Jerry wants it the most. But I don't know. That'd be a fun cycle. It would certainly be different.
They could trade Tomlin to the Cowboys, but Ryan Clark has this one correct. The Steelers' next coach is Marcus Freeman. He's 39. He's 4 years older than both Cowher and Tomlin, but there is no doubt in my mind that is exactly who they would hire.
I would have to delete tweets about Marcus Freeman's hairline, but I'd be for it.
All right. Brooke Pryor, ESPN, covers the Steelers. We appreciate the conversation as always. We'll talk to you later. Big thanks to our friends at Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. You can check them out on their website at wh.lawyer. They got locations all across North Carolina. They can help you on anything from small to medium-sized business concerns, contracts, closings on a house, refinance, any number of
family
those
law,
things.
anything,
all that kind of stuff. They've got that for you. So head on over to wh.lawyer. Big thanks to our friends at Homefield. I've got the Rob Lowe on today, the Homefield crew neck.
It's perfect.
I might wear it to Duke tonight. I don't know. We'll see. Put a blazer over it. But you can get hoodies too. Like, look, it's cold out right now. These fleece-lined crew necks and hoodies are wonderful this time of the year. So head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24 to save 20%. 24.
You got it. You can do it.
Use the promo code OG24 to save 15% off your order.
There we go.
You ever get to the point where your mouth is moving faster than your brain?
Yeah.
That happens to me all the time.
We also need to check in with Josh because do we typically change our code in the year or not until football season?
Not until next football season.
Okay.
But I can talk to Josh because if they got some new, I think they got some new basketball drops coming here soon. So we might need to refresh the promo code.
Okay.
But in the meantime, if you haven't used it yet, use it now and get some wonderful fleece time. Or save it for when you've eaten too much Two Roosters and you got to go a size up. So go to tworoosters.com. Yesterday, I was in my Homefield hoodie and I was just kind of like lamenting like this,
life.
Like, right.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacob comes out as I'm like illustrating how my gut's gotten. And he just said, when are you due?
That wasn't nice.
Like, damn, Jacob. Wow. But if I do give birth, it will be to a slave and Sunday. So go to tworoosters.com. He was actually asking me too about Two Roosters the other day, saying, when are you going to get your own flavor?
Yeah.
And he said, like, aren't you going to do something Cuban Italian? And I was like, yeah, that's the idea. He actually also suggested the guava cannoli.
Whoa.
That's what Jacob thought would be a good idea. Guava cannoli. I said there could be like a Cuban coffee cannoli too. That would also work.
I like that.
But something to work on over at Two Roosters.
No, my new love is lemon blueberry blondie. It's delicious. Brown butter base with pieces of homemade lemon blueberry blondies and a lemon curd swirl. Actually had some tax business to take care of with Jared.
Your favorite.
So I called him yesterday. He's like, I'm not suggesting that Jared helps me on the regular, but I called him yesterday. He goes, it's Monday. We're closed. I cannot help you. I said, no, this is about taxes.
It's about taxes.
He's like, oh, okay. I can.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Adam, I saw Adam over at Longleaf this past weekend when they were doing their snow sale.
Yeah. The bourbon, right?
Oh, dude.
He was able to do something?
Dude, the bourbon deals were off the charts.
Okay.
Anyway.
So what's the deal there? You're allowed to do it if it's all day?
All day.
Okay.
It's got to be all day.
No, as we tried to explain to the former governor.
Who had no idea about happy hour laws.
It is slightly insulting that I call him the former governor and I never really called him the governor. So I got to work on that.
That's fair. So we were talking about taxes and I said, yeah, Joe's looking for a guy. And he just said, does he want like a guy or does he want, like a guy? And I was like, he wants a guy. He goes, I might have a guy. I was like, well, please text him because he is fretting right now. He is fretting. Don't fret about your pest control. Contact bugsbite.com, Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. You can bundle and save. I know it's freezing out right now, but critters are coming into the house. So that's where Pest Authority can take care of you. And then you can start thinking about the summer to make sure you can enjoy your backyard. Mosquitoes at bay with our friends at bugsbite.com. So go and bundle and save right now. And they got things like misting systems and all sorts of moisture barriers, all that stuff. They can handle your house. So just contact them at bugsbite.com.
It's the lightning
We talk about barbecue a lot, and our friends at Sam Jones have wonderful barbecue with the pork skin, fried pork skin mixed in, the cracklings in that Eastern style barbecue. Great sauces, and they have great drinks too. So great beer selection, bourbon as well. So head on over to Sam Jones in downtown Raleigh and have some lunch, have some dinner, whatever you want to do.
Great space there too. They have an event space upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
The old garage there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was neat.
And it's a good time of the year. Head over there. The beans are what I've really kind of taken a real shine to.
Now we have Duke in action tonight against Miami. What were you telling me? Like, I don't know.
The number is 25.
We can do like an inadvertent OG gambling syndicate.
25?
Hey,
That is starchy.
hold up. Let's just, you know what? Let's just do a segment within a segment. Use that promo code OG24 when you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app for the first time. New customers who use OG24, if you bet $5, you'll get $200 instantly in bonus bets. So yeah, I think we're at the point, and this is going to tie into a lightning round story related to Cooper Flagg, but it's starchy because I think people are finally paying attention to what Duke is doing, and they're going all in on this. So what's the point spread tonight against Miami?
25. That's wild.
Is that worth it? Do you think so? Maybe.
Well, Miami has not won since Jim Larinaga quit.
Yeah.
So I get it. But it actually moved down to 23.
Whoa.
No, well, they didn't cover 18 against Notre Dame the other day.
That's
which
right.
means they probably unleashed the fury tonight.
Okay.
That was also a noon game on a Saturday.
This is a 9 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Prime time Tuesday.
Yeah.
Against a lousy Miami team.
Yeah.
Whose coach quit on them.
I'm liking. Yeah, I might. You know what? Might be a $5 game kind of night tonight.
There we go.
That's what I'm all about. And if you are going on that starchy number with Duke tonight, hey man, while you're checking out the app, look at the divisional rounds for the playoffs in the NFL. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and the easiest thing to do is to get in on touchdowns. So scoring touchdowns, we know that's key to winning. Sam Darnold could have used that a couple of times last night, but he didn't. But you can score big, unlike Sam Darnold, when you bet on touchdowns on DraftKings. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook today. Use that promo code OG24. New customers get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. What were you going to say?
Duke has now advanced to the point where you can get player props. I kind of like Con Knipple to score more than 12 points, minus 125.
Okay. Gotcha. Something to keep an eye on. Oh, looks like we got some breaking news in my email inbox, but let's play the legal disclaimer, shall we?
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
So
let's do a segment within a segment within a segment.
Dude, you are blowing my mind. How is this possible? Can we do that? Will we break this? Will we break the space-time continuum if we do that? All right, let's see what happens if I do this, because I'm a little worried.
Take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hill.
This is not a fun hockey break, though. Brought to you by Happy and Hill. It is 10:34 as of the recording of this podcast. Got the email from the Carolina Hurricanes that they have placed Freddie Anderson on injured reserve. Press release reads, Eric Tulsky, general manager of the National Hockey League's Carolina Hurricanes, today announced that the team has placed goaltender Frederik Anderson on injured reserve. The team has also recalled Ty Smith from the Chicago Wolves. Anderson, 35, underwent knee surgery on November 22nd, has missed Carolina's last 37 games, dating back to October 28th. So what that mean, Joe? What that mean?
Injured. Well, now part of this is for salary cap reasons.
Yes.
Right. But it also means he can't play again for the regular season. Is that what it means?
I feel like I hate hockey rules, man.
Because this was Kucherov from the Tampa year that they won the last time they won the cup. Remember?
Right. Everybody
they
freaked
had him
out
on ice the whole year.
Yeah, everybody freaked out about that.
I don't know if in the NHL what the IR designation actually means.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hold on a second. You know what we're gonna do, because we can do that? We're gonna hit pause here real quick so I can get clarification on. All right, we're back. You're watching this all, hit stop, start, all that fun stuff on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube on the podcast, you'd never know. I'm just pointing out that I paused the podcast for like a hot minute to get clarification on the Freddie Anderson thing. Essentially, this is all cat magic, because with Ghost of Spare coming back, they're already at their max. Somebody's got to be taken out. So,
and since Freddie hasn't played in a minute,
and he doesn't look like he's going to be playing anytime soon, even though he was back on the ice.
He is practicing, but I think their hope was always to have him back after the Four Nations tournament. So There you go.
There you go. All right. There's your clarification. And to clarify with Happy and Hale with our hockey break, download the app. There's no guesswork. You say, hey, this is what I want. When I want it, boom, you show up, you get it, and you go. Yep. And that's what I'm going to be doing when I'm done with the podcast.
Happy
today.
plus Hale. Get it, walk in, walk out like you own the joint.
I love it. Let's actually get into the lightning round, shall we?
To get to lightning round. A lot to get to lightning round. Very nice. It's going to be here, man. I can't wait. It's going to be in the studio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. You wish. We were talking about Cooper Flagg earlier, and I was catching up on things that I had saved to Pocket. And this is from the Washington Post. What the Cooper Flagg economy could mean for men's college basketball. Flagg is the biggest men's college basketball star in years, bringing a built-in following to a sport fighting the perception that it's declining in popularity. And as I'm reading this, and this is the key quote from a guy named Neil Pilson, a sports television consultant, former president of CBS Sports. Before Victor Wembanyama was drafted, NBA fans could do anything or would do anything to catch a glimpse of him. YouTube clips, social media, the fuzziest stream of European games. Now with Flagg, it's likely who is likely a number one pick for Duke. Not just any major college, he's at Duke, and he's on ESPN all the time. That's much more accessible. If the men's game needed an answer to the Caitlin Clark boom, you can't ask for better than that. I disagree with this overall assertion on multiple fronts. The first one being the Victor Wembanyama stuff is just how people consume their content now. I can rail against the fact that a lot of people consume our podcast via 90-second clips on Reels. I can rail against it. But that's me also understanding that's how a good chunk of you consume the podcast on a day in, day out basis. If you're upset with something that happens in a TikTok or a reel, well, I would remind you that we have a much more wider range of context in the, 90 minutes of a podcast as opposed to the 90 seconds. So that's already how people are consuming it. And that's not changing just because it's on ESPN. Because what's the biggest thing that we have an issue with? Getting young people to watch live sports.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're busy doing other things. They're probably playing Marvel Rivals and then going, oh, what did Cooper Flagg do today?
Should I know what that is?
Yeah, it's a video game that it's one of these squad-based hero shooters that people are playing right now.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'll disagree with that assertion, number one. Number two, Cooper Flagg's not Caitlin Clark.
No.
Like, come on now.
No.
And he's not Zion, but he's a very good player.
Maybe Caitlin Clark's freshman season where you're like, hey, they have a pretty good player. Let's check it out. I mean, but no, not 4 years of where she was and what she had already previously accomplished, and the whole story arc with Angel Reese and LSU, and there was a lot there. There's a lot of context there. We don't have that yet. We have 2 games against Kentucky and Kansas that people probably watched, and he played poorly in at the end of not full games, but at the end he struggled.
Yeah.
So that's where we're leaving him off, and now he's in this ACC wilderness. 42 points. Great game.
Mm-hmm.
He's not really a scorer, though. It's not really his thing.
No.
He can score, but he's not. That's not him.
Now, again, the whole premise from the Washington Post and Cooper Flagg is that college basketball, men's college basketball specifically, needs this to get people to watch in droves in the same way that Caitlin Clark had the boom of bringing people to women's college basketball. I get what the premise is, because this is something that's been happening in the last 10 to 15 years about getting people to watch college basketball.
And if Duke and Flagg had won those games against Kentucky and Kansas, and they were unbeaten and trying to be the first unbeaten national champion since 1976, I would say to you, yeah, you're onto something.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be like an appreciation that there was for Caitlin Clark.
No.
It would be a hate watch. Let's see how they screw this up.
And that's the last point. When it comes to Duke, ain't nobody watching to cheer on Duke. White guy at Duke? Yeah, man. It's about...
They have 2, actually.
Well, true. It's dusting off the who is on your Mount Rushmore of hated white Duke players, which
Get
we saw
Pete Rosenberg on this program.
which we saw on ESPN.com once. Speaking of Duke, Coach K, he's just like us, just a podcast. Actually, don't call it a podcast. True story.
Kind of feels like what it is.
True story, man.
I don't know, Joe.
Somebody had asked Coach K in a press conference one time
Yeah.
about Basketball and Beyond, which is on Sirius XM. And they were saying, you on your podcast. And he said, whoa, it's not a podcast. It's a show. It's a real show. Here's what he said to Chris Patola on Sirius XM.
Two conferences, power conferences that are ahead are the SEC and the Big Ten. And so our conference has been a great one. I think it needs to get better. We're down result-wise in both men's basketball and in football, at least the bowl games. And I'd like to see something innovative, like I'd like to see the ACC and the Big East talk and form a mega basketball conference. People are talking about a mega football conference eventually. Imagine if we had the Big East, and you know what? But Connecticut would have the opportunity to play football in our league. At least talk about stuff like that, but I couldn't imagine our footprint.
Yeah.
Come on.
All right.
And the quality of basketball to go along with the tradition of basketball in our conference.
I love that Mike Krzyzewski, when you get him going, he's just like you and me. Remember when we did a radio bit to give us Mike from Durham stories? Mm-hmm. That is peak Mike from Durham. He's just a guy who's probably on social media coming up with all sorts of realignment and expansion plans. To be fair, Coach K, this is why I pushed back on the idea that Coach K was leaving college basketball because the game he loved was no longer there for him. No, he's just old, and he was coming up with a different way to pass the program on to the next guy. Mike Krzyzewski has always been forward-thinking. He has always been talking about getting a commissioner for college basketball, rethinking as a product to get it in front of people because he understood where it was headed, which is what we have right now.
One of the smartest things I ever heard Mike Krzyzewski say after the NCAA issues at NC State.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, that was an FBI investigation. It wasn't just NC State. They were just collateral damage.
Right.
He said in basketball, you can make money on the AAU circuit before you get to college, and you make money in the pros after you get to college. He said, college basketball is the only level where you can't legally make money.
It's funny how that works.
Because we need to change that.
Yeah.
And they have. I don't know if I'm like have Mac Brown brain or Bill Belichick doddering brain, but Krzyzewski looks down like sprightly at 77.
I
right
know.
there.
He's man. No, the only issue with Mike Krzyzewski, honestly, when it comes to audio, is that he spaces out his words a lot. So I had this magic trick of turning a 3-minute clip of Mike Krzyzewski into about a 90-second clip, because if you took out all the spaces and the uhs and things like that, you got to the meat of it. He was great when I had to send back audio to like Metro networks. Like how we need an 8-second clip. I'm like, oh, damn it.
Gonna make me work here.
You're making me work on this one.
We've got a lot to get to. Woo. It's a lightning round.
Finally, in the lightning round, am I supposed to be hype about the fact that Carson Beck is transferring to Miami? Am I supposed to be hype about that?
What a 180 this was. It was, I got hurt. I'm going to the pros. And then obviously the feedback was the same as it was online.
Nah, bro.
I'm sorry. What NFL?
So he shows
you mean
up,
you're going to the World League? Or?
So he shows up with a Cavender in a video, hyping up the fact he's going to Miami. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're thinking this is some big coup for Miami coming off of Cam Ward to a guy that
just same. It's the same.
I am no. What? And I mean, I'm not talking about this from the perspective of Miami. I'm talking about this from the perspective of the ACC. That's all I'm getting at.
You know whose fault this is.
Whose fault is this?
This is CJ Bailey's fault for re-signing with the Wolfpack.
Oh, is that what it was?
Home. Yep, he's too young. There'll be time. There'll be time for him to go home. But
fair enough.
This is his fault for not going home, so they had to go get Carson Beck.
Plus, the other thing about Carson Beck going to Miami, it really does kind of tie in with Mario Cristobal and the galaxy brain levels at which he operates. So remember, Cam Ward doesn't play in the Pop Touch Bowl in the second half. He achieves the record, and that's the end of it. And then Mario Cristobal is all salty about it. I'm not going to give you context. I'm not going to explain anything, which then leads to people speculating about what happened. So Tim Reynolds, who covers Florida, the Florida area for the AP, I guess he caught up with Cristobal on the notion that Cam Ward quit the bowl game, quote, bullshit. He gave a very impassioned defense against what he calls a false narrative. The decision on the bowl game was predetermined based on his likely status to be the number one pick. Why was that so hard to explain after the bowl game?
Yeah.
I'm mad at these false narratives. You know, there's one real quick, easy trick that would prevent false narratives from populating social media.
Just go full Bond villain and explain yourself.
What's there to explain? There's nothing nefarious about this. Just be like, hey, man, he wanted the record and we wanted to protect his number one draft pick status. And then we felt that was the best way to handle it. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds pretty logical, actually.
Sounds cool to me, but it's Mario Cristobal, the man that overthinks victory formations. Big thanks to O2 Fitness for being a corporate champion. You can go to o2fitnessclubs.com. So with O2 Fitness, you can work out. It's all good. They got great facilities, great staff, great locations, because you ain't going to the gym if it ain't nearby.
No, it's got to be convenient.
Very key. And as we say, it's more than just a gym. If you're looking for wellness from within, you've got Loop Nutrition that makes it super, super easy for you to understand and eat healthier. And if you're broken like Joe Giglio, they can do their best to fix it.
I am broken.
You are a broken man.
Especially at this time of the year. There's really no way around it.
So go to Renew Physiotherapy and they'll try to fix you and your broken body like Joe Giglio and feel better after you get that Theragun just jammed into your neck.
You know, all the other broken parts, more difficult. But Renew Physiotherapy, yes, that will help.
Yes, indeed. Big thanks to our friend Matt Davis over at State Farm. Check him out online at insuregarner.com or the oginsurance.com. Better yet, call directly at 919-779-8277. Save on your home and auto. And of course, our friends at the Butcher's Market. I've been mentioning a lot of pre-made meals. Just stick it in the oven like takes.
Yeah.
Butcher's Market has a bunch of those ready to go. If you don't want to go to the counter, not that big of a deal. They have a freezer section where you can get these pre-made meals. If you just want the signature steak tips and you don't want to be like asking, they actually have the signature steak tips in prepackaged section. Just grab them and go.
You told me this. And my sister, she goes to the store. We call it the secret Jamie Giglio aisle because she always seems to find stuff that no one else can find.
Right.
I feel like you are legitimately the first person who was like, it's not when you first walk in either, because that's like the prepackaged like sides and stuff, and you can get the maple bourbon chicken as well over there, and the signature steak tips. No, you walk by that, you walk by the other counter, and you're like, I found this land of milk and honey.
Yes,
and to help you with your dinner needs. I don't know. I still don't know how you did it, because of course I'm still caught up in the hot dogs.
Well, you still have 80 more hot dogs to eat.
I'm down to 34.
All right, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe to the YouTube comments. Josh in Honolulu chimed in on the YouTube comments.
I love this.
Said, what brought me to Hawaii was the military, unfortunately, not golf. I know. There goes your theory. I'm a Carolina fan, and I agree that NC State is our lowercase rival in basketball, uppercase rival in football. Appreciate your service, Josh, and appreciate you listening to the podcast all the way out in freaking Honolulu.
I was going to say, I'm glad we're there for you, man.
Yeah, man. From Ramar, look, if you guys care about it that much, you can have North Carolina as a capital R rival. They're incredibly needy and getting ready to ditch us for both Michigan anyway.
Ramar's a Duke fan, right?
He is a Duke guy.
Yeah, you're not getting ditched, Ramar. It's fine.
You guys are a package deal.
It's okay.
You guys are a package deal. From Seth, in a post-settlement world, do we think there will be fines for taunting in college like in the NFL or other professional leagues? I get what Jalen Washington was doing. I get what NC State did with the flag planting, but this mess has to stop on all sides. And I think money is the only motivator.
Yeah, I don't like the flag planting thing. You know how I feel about that. But I do think it is silly. With Texas, remember, they tried to make it a penalty.
Yeah.
With the horns down. And I mean, come on.
Now to me, that's just soft.
Yeah, I don't like that. So I would prefer not. I would prefer for that not to be the case.
Yeah.
But I understand what he's saying. Who was it? It was Rick Barnes this week?
I didn't see that.
I'll find you the clip. We'll use it tomorrow. He basically said, hey, if you're not going to do the job that you're paid to do, you're going to sit on the bench.
Yeah.
He said that in a presser.
That makes sense to me. That's a better way to handle it than freaking, what's his face out of UCLA.
Oh, they lost again.
What? No.
I made money on this one.
Get out.
I was happy about this.
Get out.
I've now moved St. John's and UCLA to my favorites because Patino's on a heater.
Yeah.
And I've taken a St. John's Final Four future.
Okay.
And I am now moving UCLA into my favorites so that I know when they're playing. So I'm okay. It's time to fade Mick Cronin for, MFing his team.
From Sir Galahad on YouTube, I disagree that Hubert Davis is fired if they miss the tournament. Making a championship game, beating Kay in his last home game, retiring him in the Final Four, and making a number 1 seed last year. He has earned a lot of grace. If he missed the tournament this year, then his seat will get hot. But I don't think he is automatically fired. Fair enough.
I don't, did we say that?
No, that's, I think he's just reacting to UNC fans. We are not saying that.
Yeah.
We have not said.
Well, I don't think they're going to miss the tournament this year.
Yeah, neither do I.
Number 2,
No.
yeah, I think it would be a full year before, because I don't think that would be I think that would probably be if they make some sort of change at the AD.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
All right, I think this is from a 919.
Representing the Noke. Shout out to our sponsor, Nature's Relief. Impartial UVA fan weighing in on the UNC NC State stuff. Of course, when they play, I pull for State. But having said that, what I've taken away from all the talk, everything y'all talked about, is this. Fat man, fat man, fat man, na 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 na. Fat man. Fuck the New York Rangers fans.
What was the last part?
Fuck the New York Rangers fans.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. There was watching. Did they get smoked by Stanford or Cal this weekend? And I took no joy in it.
Oh yeah.
UVA. I felt like I was a little bit broken inside. It's because Tony's not there. It's like it's like going back to beating Dave Lato.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's different. You're right. You're right.
So what? Yeah, they got roadhoused by Stanford. My guy, Kyle Smith, 88-65. They lost to Cal, 75-61. So, yeah, it's going great.
All right, one more sports phone call.
Hey, guys. I went to NC State, graduated with a degree in engineering, and you guys really stumped me a little bit of a math problem yesterday. And first, I guess I got to pause and say to UNC and ECU fans, a degree is something you get when you actually attend the university. And at State, they even make you go to class and pass these things called tests. We don't just get coloring books and stuff like that like you guys do. We actually have to do a little work to get our degree. But anyway, you talked about the Venn diagram between ECU football fans and UNC basketball fans. I'm not sure. Is it still a Venn diagram when the circles are on top of each other? So maybe you guys can answer that for me and help straighten me out. I appreciate it.
Yes, it no longer is a Venn diagram. It's just a circle at that point.
Knew where that was going.
I knew where that was going to. We started the show with corrections and clarifications. We will end the show with corrections and clarifications.
All mixed up, you don't know what to do. I guess we'll clarify and correct something or two. Cause you know what, Joe is not the first or the last. You may have got wrong in the past.
This is more of a clarification when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes and Freddie Anderson. I got it wrong and they brought Ghost back and they're bringing Ty Smith up. What do you got to do, right? Well, it wasn't because Ghost is back. It's they want to bring Ty Smith back up from the AHL.
Okay.
So in order to
they
get Ty
wouldn't have
Smith,
cap room to do
right?
that.
So in order to
Okay.
get Smith into the lineup, well, somebody had to go back on the IR with Ghost coming off the IR.
So there's room.
So there's room. So they're putting Freddie on IR. This is no indication of like the injury itself. My understanding is, and again, I read a big Sarah Sivian piece about the shit show that's happening in Boston with Brad Marchand and WEEI and all this other stuff, from informed speculation to actual reporting. And there's been this really bad blurring of lines. I'm simply saying that Freddie is on track to be back. This is not any sort of
Okay. It's not like they don't have to shelf him. This is just a salary cap roster management move.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I will admit, when it comes to the hockey stuff, I will admit that sometimes
you
I
gotta
have
look it up.
You got to look it up because it's not a simple like, it's this rotating thing and the balance and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, man. And I'll save my youth hockey rant for the end of the season. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We'll see you on Wednesday.